we are going to cover current affairs from 19th to 26th September, covering these range of issues. So first is there is a Supreme Court split verdict on custodial death. Okay, so very important topic also, and this is from GS. GS2 Quality and Governance. Fact check unit, GS2 Governance. Pact of the future, GS2 IR. What happened? GS3 Economy. Periodic Labor Force Survey. GS3 Economy again. Free Movement Regime. GS2 IR. Contempt Petition. GS2 Polity and Constitution. Bharati Antariksha Station. GS3 SNT. Then this is important from environment point of view. GS3 Pradhan Mantri Janjati Unnat Gram Abhiyan. GS2 Governance. Commission for Air Quality Management. GS3 Environment. IPF GS2 IR. Clause 6 of Assam Accord. GS2 Governance in Constitutional Issues. And this is PIN means places in use, Jordan, and this is in terms of IR, right? So these are the topics which we are going to discuss for the last week. So first point of discussion is custodial death, right? So you might have an idea about what is custodial death, right? So any person who is accused, he need not be convicted also. Any person who is accused of some charge, who is in police custody or judicial custody, if he was beaten up or he was tortured to death by the police, or need not it happen only in the lockup or the police station or in the jail. It can happen when the police is escorting or anything, right? So even any area where the police actually controls or they're trying to take the care of that particular person, right? So then it can qualify under custodial death. So what is actually the issue is, most of the times, police, they have the limitations that they have to complete the investigation, they have to submit charge sheet and all these things before the court. So under that pressure, most of the times, they'll be resorting to custodial torture. That custodial torture, if it takes extra form, then it may even lead to custodial deaths. So what actually happened is, whether custodial deaths have to be entertained or no, that's a question. And recently in that particular context, Supreme Court has given a split verdict. Means out of two judge bench, one has given in favor and one has given against. That is what we call a split verdict, right? So what is the main issue here is, you can see these are the states which have highest number of custodial deaths. So highest in the state of Gujarat, right? So then followed by Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal and Odisha. So these are the 5 states which are having more custodial deaths recorded. And you can see, like, there are many human rights violations also. But why I have chosen this topic is not only from your fundamental rights point of view, but at the same time, in the recent times, UPSC is also asking more judicial related questions. Especially in the past, they have asked a question on what is the difference between police custody and judicial custody, right? That means they're going beyond the books, right? They're asking the practical applications. For example, in the recent times, you're coming across more about bail, what are the different types of bail and all these things, right? So also there is a differentiation that Supreme Court has got between FIR and charge sheet, right? So what are to be included and all in FIR and charge sheet, and what is the basic difference and all. Or sometimes they'll ask you regarding bail and parole also. These are the probable areas, because these are the very recent phenomenon which are coming across in the newspapers, right? So they can ask you in this regard also, right? So for that understanding, you need to know certain things. So what actually happened is, there is a case before the Supreme Court where the police officer was charged of section 304 of IPC. Section 304 of IPC deals with culpable homicide. Culpable homicide means you don't actually have that intention to cause death. Okay. For example, if I have bet a person, I don't have that intention to torture him to death, right? But due to some action or the conversation that happened between me and that person, I just have slapped him. Because of that force I have used, that person have died, right? I don't have that intention to make him die, but due to my action, he died. That is what we call it as culpable homicide, right? So 302 is murder. Murder means there is clear intention to kill that person. But culpable homicide doesn't have any intention to kill that particular person. So it is section 304 on which that particular person was charged, right? So in this particular aspect only, Supreme Court has given the split verdict. Okay, that means one said in favor and one said against, right? So and you know in the recent times, IPC was replaced with Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, BNS, right? So and you have to understand in laws also they can ask you, because in the recent times, from July 1st only we have this law changed and all. So they can take to the main concept and they can ask you the difference between substantive law and procedural law, right? Substantive law means which determines rights and liabilities of a person, right? For example, in a case, one person will be the victim. Victim has the right to claim something in return, like compensation or whatever the punishment, right? So that is the right of the victim. That is the liability on the person who is accused, yes or no? So that is how, if you are interpreting who has the right and who has the liability, such law we call it as substantive law. Procedural law means what is the procedure that the courts and the police follow generally in deciding a particular case. That is what we call it as procedural law. Here IPC and CRPC, which got replaced, both are substantive, no, both are procedural laws, not substantive law, right? So that is what you have to understand. And Indian Evidence Act, which also got replaced, okay, that is neither a complete substantive law nor a procedural law, right? So that is the main thing you need to understand, because UPSC may go there also and ask you, because after many years there is a change in the criminal law system, right? So that is why they can ask you what is difference between substantive and procedural law. IPC is a procedural law. Procedure means if you have done a particular crime, that crime will be defined in IPC and respect to punishment also will be mentioned in IPC. That is what we call it as procedural law. That will be used by the courts in giving justice. Okay, so that is what the procedural law aspect. So then here what is custodial death? I told you, any person who is in custody. Custody means who is actually guarding someone or who is caring someone. Okay, it need not be always in the negative sense. Your parents are taking your custody. It may be positive angle also, it may be negative angle also, right? So but then if you understand what generally happens in coverage, this is the most important thing. It can take place in jail or in a vehicle which it belongs to the police and all, when they're escorting from one place to another place. Okay, so if that person have tried to escape and if they're resorting to beating that person or shooting anything, okay, because of that also if he dies, that also forms the custodial death. And even in a private or medical facility also, right? So if the police have tortured in a medical facility or like a hospital and all, then also it amounts. That means where the police is trying to safeguard or trying to protect them, all that will be coming under the custodial aspect. Okay, so custody means giving some care or protecting as a guardian. Then what are the provisions we have in the international law domain? Means we have many laws which are saying against custodial torture, right? Like we have UN Declaration of Human Rights. Under that particular declaration, we have Article 5, which says there should not be any form of torture. Okay, any torture is not actually entertained. It can be custodial or any torture, right? So even torture means a domestic violence also can be considered as a torture, right? So it can be anything. So including custodial torture also is limited under UN Declaration on Human Rights according to Article 5. Then we have Article 6 of International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So this also covers there is no custodial torture that any state can use against its subjects. Then we also have UN standard set for minimum prison rules. So what are the prison rules have to be followed in general by United Nations, okay, countries, that was also set in the year 2015. So these are the international laws which are saying what has to be done by the police, okay, as part of their inquiry and the investigation process and what cannot be done. So these are certain things which were set already. Then coming to Indian Constitution. Can you name any article which is trying to safeguard such rights? Article 20. First is 20, right? Article 20 gives you certain protection against conviction of some offences. That means a person who is actually convicted. Convicted means who is already proven guilty by the court, right? So any person who is already proven guilty, he will have some protection, right? So no ex post facto law, 20 clause 1. That means you cannot be punished for the law which is not applied in the present time, right? If you cannot go retrospectively and you cannot apply any law and you cannot be punished, no ex post facto law. Then 20 clause 2, no double jeopardy. That means any person cannot be punished for the same offence twice, no double jeopardy. 20 clause 3, no self-incrimination. That means you cannot compel any person to be a witness against himself. If I torture you and if I say, only if you confess that I am the person who have resorted to this crime, then only I'll leave you. That can be used as a weapon by the police and all, right, as part of their investigation and all. That is why any person who is making himself as a witness, okay, so that cannot be accepted under 20 clause 3, right. So these are certain protections given to the persons who are already convicted under 20 clause 3. Then 21, you have basic fundamental right of life and liberty, right. So you know Article 21 reads, so 20 clause 3 is no self-incrimination. 21, Article 21 reads, no person shall be deprived of his life and personal liberty except according to the procedure established by law, right. So that means only if law permits you, then only you can take any person's life and personal liberty. So that means as you are not actually permitted, who is actually the person who has to decide whether a person have committed a crime or not? It's the judiciary. Police doesn't have any right to take a person's life until unless the law is allowing you. That means court should grant that this person has to be hanged to death. Then only police have to implement it in their jails and prisons, right? So that is how. That means until unless there is no procedure established by law, you cannot take any person's life and liberty. That is also one safeguard who is again protected from this particular thing. Then 22. 22 protects against certain arrests and detentions. You know, preventive and punitive detention. Preventive detention means to stop one from doing a crime, you will be arresting before, even before the trial, right? So you will be keeping some person under surveillance. You can say as preventive detention. Punitive means already if some person have done a crime, then you will be detaining that person and you will be sentencing that person to some like punishment and all. So that is Article 22. So you have to understand all of these are available for citizens as well as foreigners. Okay, so it is not only available to Indian citizens. Then, if you are resorting to custodial death or torture, it's a violation of rule of law, because one of the key principle of rule of law says no one is above the law, right? And there should not be any arbitrary interpretation of the law, right? According to the rule of law. That means if you are using the law according to your choice without any extremity, or there has to be some limitation on any power, right? That's the thing. Who is imposing that limitation? It's the Constitution of India, right? Otherwise, then what happens? Your rule of law gets violated. And rule of law is also intrinsic part of your Article 14, right to equality. And this is part of your basic structure also, as said by Supreme Court, right? Rule of law is also the basic structure. So, in case if any custodial death happens, you are violating all of these constitutional provisions along with the international laws, right? Then one famous case, in case if a question is asked in future in mains, you can remember a very important landmark case. There are many other cases, but this a case of 1960s where Neelabati Behra, she is a person, she was a woman, and her son was actually like charged of some offense at that point of time, and police have taken, like I think on the grounds of robbery of some jewelry and all. So he was taken by the police, and after 2 days also, she couldn't find out. And you know, there are certain restrictions on the police also. That means if you arrest any person, within 24 hours, you have to produce before the magistrate. This also did not happen in the case of Neelabati Behra's son. So she went to the police station, she could not find about the son. There is no trace, right? Same happened in the case of JB movie also, if you have seen, right? So the police will be torturing that person, he'll die in the custody itself, right? So same is the case that happened, and then she filed a case against the police because there is no trace that she couldn't find about the son. And the case finally has said that it is a clear custodial death, and she was granted compensation. That's not a big thing actually. She did not fight for only compensation, right? But it's a clear human right violation, right? Because the police doesn't have any right to take away person's life until unless granted by the law, right? So this is a very important landmark case of custodial torture, right? Then what are the negatives of custodial death? So it's a clear violation of your fundamental rights, we have seen, and then it also erodes the trust in law enforcement, right? So police, if they do custodial torture and all, public will not have any confidence on the police and the law enforcement agencies. And these are certain examples in the recent times I have given. You can use also in answers. And then it is nothing but implying excessive force on one person, okay, making him as a victim to confess his crime. That means that is not actually permitted by the law, but still you are using excessive force on any person through custodial torture or death. So these are the negative sides of the custodial torture. Then what can be done? You have to strengthen the legal system, or you have to sensitize the people also, right? That they also have certain rights. For example, any illiterate person who was actually arrested or you can taken under the police custody and all, will he know that there is a right that he has to be produced within 24 hours before the magistrate, or can he have that idea that I can have a legal practitioner of my own? Yes or no? Those type of things will not be aware for everyone, right? You people are studying in the recent times, but how many of the people who are in the remote areas and the rural areas will understand these provisions, right? So that means sensitization also have to be done, and police reforms also have to be implemented. Especially we have this Pact Singh case, very important with respect to police reforms. Okay, so how police has to be reformed in the 2006. He was a former DGP, so he under him and his guidelines there is a reform committee also established to suggest what can be done better. Then the most important aspect is there is a difference that I told you already. You can see here. This is a question asked in one of the prelims in UPSC. It was asked in 2016 or 17. So with reference to India, consider the following statements. Judicial custody means accused is in the custody of the concerned magistrate and is also locked up in the police station, not in jail. Is that statement correct? Judicial custody itself means he'll be in jail, right? Not in jail. See, that is what the beautifulness of UPSC. It makes a statement to be difficult, but in the option itself, they'll make that easy, right? Not is a term which is giving you the clue, right? Then during judicial custody, the police officer in charge is not allowed to interrogate the suspect without the approval of the court. It can happen, right? Yes or no? Judicial custody means he cannot have complete freedom. He has to take the court permission to investigate and interrogate. So that means only this option has to be true, right? So that is the way how UPSC have asked a question. So then you need to also understand what are the differences. So police custody means it will be under police control, and judicial means just judicial magistrate will be having the control of the accused. Here it is in the lockup, it is in the jail here, right? And you know, like he has to be produced before the magistrate within 24 hours of his arrest, excluding the journey time. Okay, excluding is an important term, not including the journey time, excluding the journey time. And here you can see until the court further permits, he can be in the jail only, or only until he was given a bail, he will be released from the jail. So this is a provision here, right? So then you can see here, he has to file a FIR or complaint, then only he can take any person into police custody. But here if you see, under judicial custody, a magistrate has to order the police, okay, to keep any person under judicial custody, and then the time period also will be decided by the judicial magistrate itself, okay. So that is one. And time period here is 24 hours, and in lockup maximum in any worst situation you can keep till 15 days of time only. But here, if you see, it is a case of 60 days and 90 days. Okay, so because like for example, any offense which can be punished for more than 10 years of imprisonment, that can be given for 60 days. Okay, so generally within 60 days, police has to investigate and they have to file the charge sheet and submit before the court. But if it is involving any crime where the punishment will be greater than 10 years, then the police has to submit their investigation related report in the form of charge sheet in 90 days of time. If they don't generally do within that time, then the person who was arrested will be eligible for default bail. If the police could not complete investigation, it's the fault of the police. So the person, however he, like whomever he may be, or whatever the situation may be, he is entrusted to give bail. Regular bail, default bail will be given by the court, right? So this is what the differences between police custody and judicial custody, right? And then next topic is, like in the recent times, Supreme Court has made fact check unit of central government as unconstitutional, right? So what is the first thing you need to understand is fact check unit. Okay, this was recently in the year 2019 also, it was established by central government under IT rules, especially under Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Because as we are using mobile phones and all the internet, there is a high chance that fake news also spreads. So we generally don't know what is authenticity of any news. We consider everything that comes to us as a fact, right? So the difference between fact and fake is actually getting blurred. That is the reason why central government under PIB, Press Information Bureau, they have established a unit, okay, to check whether that particular news is actually fake or fact, okay. Then based on that, they'll actually filter it out. If it is a fake news, then they can have that right to order that internet service provider or any social media platform to remove that particular content. That's the actual intention of bringing this fact check unit by central government. But what is the main thing here? Recently, Supreme Court has made it unconstitutional because it's a clear violation of your Article 19(1)(a), your freedom of speech and expression. That's the main thing which Supreme Court has opined, right? It's a clear violation of your freedom of speech and expression. See, who is actually controlling this? It is the government, and government can decide what is good for it and what is bad for it. Yes or no? If you are making any dissent against the government, then government may feel it fake. How can you say some news as fake? There is no answer from the government. That means if you are making anything anti-government, that can be termed as fake and they can remove it. Yes or no? That means it is becoming more authoritarian. So that is the reason why Supreme Court said it is unconstitutional, because fundamental right of freedom of speech and expression is getting violated through this, right? So that's the main thing which Supreme Court has observed, and it has struck down this 2021 IT rules which were amended in 2023 to create this fact check unit under PIB, right? So it was made unconstitutional, and out of 3-judge bench, it is clearly given in the verdict with 2:1 majority, right? So and they made it unconstitutional. So Government of India has notified this fact check unit in the year 2019 under Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, right? So this is under central government. Then you need to understand this IT rules of 2023 got amended to create this fact check unit. Okay, what is the main aim? Anything which is misleading or which is fake can be filtered out from the internet or all the networks, so that the government can provide only authentic information. That is the main stand that government has taken, okay, when it has started or established this fact check unit. But later on, what actually happened is there are certain inherent flaws also in this particular concept. Like you can see here, main problems are, see, it is compromising your freedom of speech and expression, right? When government is becoming more authoritarian, it is controlling your freedom of speech and expression, and it can be used as a misuse by the government also, right? It can take away whatever the content it doesn't like, right? Then conflict of interest may also come. Most of the times, anything can be, or the criticism generally will be towards the government only, right? So when some government is functioning, most of the parties or most of the people also will raise something against government only. So then if government only is able to judge what is correct and what is not, then it is conflict of interest only, right? That's the main thing. And lack of clarity on what is actually fake and what is actually fact, right? So with respect to that also, they didn't say on what grounds will certify something to be fake. That means whoever is actually the person, PIB, okay, so the PIB unit is also owned by Government of India only, then how it can decide what is fake and what is fact, right? When anything is against the government, how it can actually have that clarity, right? That is also one question. Then it is also contributing to this main provision, Shreya Singhal versus Union of India case, a very important case again, where what happened is Section 66A of IT Act was struck down in this particular case, a very important landmark case. So she was a Delhi advocate, Shreya Singhal. So what happened is under Section 66A of IT Act, what is empowered is government can strike down or remove any offensive content. Okay, that means offensive in the sense what it feels offensive for the government. It can be removed according to the IT Act. So that means she said if the provision is there, it's a clear violation of my fundamental freedom of speech and expression. So that was challenged and Delhi High Court has struck down in this particular case. So Shreya Singhal versus Union of India case has completely struck down Section 66A, which upheld there will be freedom of speech and expression that is important than any other thing, right? So in that way, this is also again compromising this fact, right? If government is judging what is correct and what is not, and if it is compromising your freedom, again it is same thing like Shreya Singhal case only, right? Then let us see what is more aspect. Okay, so in the judgment, if you see, they said clearly there is some restrictions imposed on your fundamental rights, but still those restrictions are violating your 14 right to equality because government is a master and government is only controlling everything here, right? There is no equality here between the government and oppositions. 19(1) year freedom of speech and expression, and 19(1)G is a profession, freedom of profession. That means here many people who are actually maintaining this data and all, they have that freedom of profession. That means see the Twitter or any social media platforms and all, they have that freedom of profession. That means they can extend the ideas. That is the main job they had. That means how can you dictate what they have to do and what they cannot? That's the main thing. Even Twitter also have challenged once to the union government. Okay, so union government asked some particular tweets to be deleted, but they said it cannot be done, right? Because it's a violation. Then they also considered it to be vague and misleading term, right? What is vague and misleading term is fake. So how can you interpret what is fake actually? So they thought this to be vague and misleading also. Sometimes government can use it in its own benefit. Then it also compromises your freedom of speech and expression, and also fact check unit may lead to censorship by the government. During British also we used to have censorship. Same way now it appears like government is censoring everything before the content goes to the public. That is what the opinion that Supreme Court has expressed by cancelling this fact check unit. So then what is this fact check unit of PIB? It was established in 2019. Objectives are it should act like a deterrent for the persons who actually disseminate misinformation or false information. That means it should stop the information which is not correct. Then what is the aim here? Easy avenue for the persons who actually give this false information or questionable information. So this should not actually happen. So for that reason only we have this fact check unit. Then what are the functions? Mainly the function you can see here, countering the misinformation of the government itself, right? So fact check unit is not trying to filter out something which is not relevant. Only government related information which they consider to be fake, okay, that is getting filtered. That's the main thing. And it also monitors, detects and counters disinformation campaigns. That means if you make anything against the MP of the government or any prime minister or any minister also, that gets censored here, right? That's the main objective of the fact check unit. Then what is the government's rationale? What did they say when they brought this unit is, they said this will address the issue of fake news, right? So fake news issue can be compromised or it can be settled in case if you have this filtration by fact check unit. And it also improves the accountability of the social media platforms. There has to be some regulations because under 19(1) you have freedom of speech and expression. At the same time, there are certain restrictions also imposed. You cannot use anything against the sovereignty and security of the country. You cannot use something to defame anyone, or you cannot say anything against the judiciary, which also makes contempt of court. So certain restrictions are also there, right? Then it also helps in better cyber security related measures, right? So if something goes on fake, right, then something may be happen because of that, and some cyber threats also may happen or hacking and these type of things also can happen because of it. And then hate speech and mob violence also may stop, right? In case if you are having this particular content. And hate speech means when a particular community targets another community based on the food habits, dressing style, and all the other things, cultural aspects. And mob violence is also increasing in the recent times, right? So because of this, government said it is very much necessary to have a fact check unit to control all of these. So then, next topic we have is UN's Pact of Future Summit, right? In the recent times, our Prime Minister made a visit to USA to participate in Quad Summit, right? So 6th Quad Summit, he participated in USA, which India actually has to hold, but there is a swap between India and USA for this year. Then he attended this Pact of Future Summit in UN, right? So what is this main summit? Means here like UN is the global body which we have established in the year 1945, immediately after the World War II, right? So because at that point of time, after World War One, in 1919 we had League of Nations, and that was not actually proper, or it is not actually able to stop the Second World War. That is a thing which we can understand as a failure of League of Nations. So then after World War II, there is a need to ensure that there should not be any more World War in the future. Then we felt the need of establishing an organization for having peace and security in the form of UN. It was established by UN Charter in 1945, right? So, and in UN also, there are 6 organs, right? What are the 6 organs of UN? UN General Assembly, UN Security Council, International Court of Justice, Social and Economic Council of UN, Trusteeship Council, and UN Secretariat, right? So these are the 6 organs, and out of which Trusteeship Council is not functional now. Only 5 are functioning, and except ICJ, all other 5 are headquartered in New York City of USA. Only ICJ, which is a UN court, right? So which generally settles the dispute between 2 member countries, is headquartered in Hague, Netherlands, right? So that's the thing. So what is the main thing why this pact was signed? Because like in General Assembly, where all UN member countries will have membership, right? They can participate in the process and decision making, and they'll vote, right? General Assembly and all. So generally when there is a resolution also, for example, if Russia-Ukraine war is going on, so all member countries will discuss what has to be done and all, like same parliament and all, then they can pass a resolution, so this has to be done and all. So according to the majority, any issue can be passed or rejected. That is a thing, but there is no problem in General Assembly because almost 193 countries are part of General Assembly. But there is an important organization or organ of UN, that is UN Security Council. All the problem is here, right? UN Security Council had 15 members, right? And 5 permanent countries are part of it and 10 non-permanent countries are part of it. All these 5 permanent countries are USA, UK, France, Russia, China, right? All these 5 countries have veto powers, right? And Russia, which is also participant in the Russia-Ukraine war, being a permanent country and having veto, it could stop all the resolutions that were passed against Russia by US and China. So China will not actually, but US, France, UK, all these countries are passing something against Russia, but Russia and China will be in favor of Russia. They can stop anything. Or take the case of India also. India wants a global definition for terrorism. That question was recently asked in GS2, if you have seen the mains paper, right? So India is always trying to have a global definition of terrorism, but comprehensive definition. But like even if we wanted to label any terrorist who is actually plotting something against India or plotted already, so we wanted to make them as a UN designated terrorist. Every time China is using its veto power in stopping it. Okay, what is the necessity that it had? It doesn't have any answer, right? So that means because of the veto power, they're using something. Veto means to stop. That means, and like in UNSC also, it is because of India's support. At that point of time, the biggest mistake that Jawaharlal Nehru have done is to give support to China instead of India. Actually, we got the membership, or we got the chance to become UNSC permanent member. But in spite of that also, Jawaharlal Nehru at that point of time supported China to get membership. And today the same country is stopping India from getting the UNSC membership. Things and time change, right? So that is the main thing. That means once, because of India's support, it became permanent member. But it doesn't have that gratitude. So it is now stopping India's membership in UNSC. So what is the main contention is, it is not only India's case, right? So if you see, we have almost 5 continents. In North America, only USA is part, right? In Southern America, is there any country in UNSC? No. Latin American countries, Caribbean countries? No. Then coming to Europe, who are all the countries in Europe? Only UK and France. There are many Western countries and East European countries also, but they don't have membership. Come to Africa. Is there any membership in Africa? No. So how then UN becomes a representative body? Major decisions are taken by UNSC, and UNSC is controlled by 5 countries. Only 5. They're having that veto power. They're deciding what has to be done, what cannot be done. All 10 non-permanent member countries you have, those will be there as members only for 2-year term. They get changed. So they are not able to have that thing for themselves. Like India has hold the non-permanent membership in UN as a non-permanent country in 21-22 time period. But now if India wants to be part, it cannot, right? So then why is this case? Always India is advocating for UNSC reforms, because you are saying UN as a representative body. Representation means it has to include everyone. There is no representation from Africa, from even South America, Eastern European countries. There is no representation, right? So almost till now, if you see, except those 10 non-permanent countries also, every 2 years they change, right? Almost 50 countries, they didn't even become one-time member also in the UNSC. You can understand. Every time it is dominated by only few countries. How it becomes democratic, right? That's the main thing which India is objecting. And for this UNSC reforms only, there is one organization that was formed by 4 countries, that is G4, right? G4 is a group of countries of India, Japan, Brazil, and Germany. India, Japan, Brazil, Germany. So these are the 4 countries which have formed a group of 4, G4 we call, like G7, G20. So they are asking for UNSC reforms. These countries also want to be part of UNSC. But what actually happens? There is another club, coffee club, or Uniting for Consensus we call. That group has formed just to counter G4 countries. You can understand. India wants UNSC membership. To counter India, which will be the country? Pakistan. Pakistan is part of Coffee Club or Uniting for Consensus. That is a group to again stop G4 countries from getting membership, right? And then if it is a case of Germany, Italy. Italy is a country. Italy says we are also developed. Why only Germany has to be given, right? So like this, Brazil, Argentina, Japan, South Korea. Like this, one country's membership or proposal was actually getting dragged by another country by forming another grouping. In that way, there are so many issues that are there inherently in UNSC related reforms. So Pact for Future means in future, all these countries are now asking there has to be some representative form in the UN. Then only if you are having representation from all walks of life or all parts of life, then you can have better decision making. Otherwise, it will be dominated only by that elite P5 countries only. That's the main thing, the intention behind Pact of Future Summit. So you can see, mainly they can ask you the theme also. In prelims, they can ask a easy question. What is this Pact of Future Summit related to? If you don't remember the thing, then Pact of Future means you may also get confused with environment, future related things and all. But it is mainly oriented to reform UNSC, okay, United Nations Security Council. Then what is the main thing? Historical injustice that was done to Africa. Because you know, Africa is a country of almost 53 countries, continent of 53 countries, but there is no representation from Africa till now in UNSC. So, and there are other countries like Latin America, South America, Caribbean countries where they don't have even any representation. So, this is one thing. And they also wanted to expand UNSC. Why only 5 has to be permanent? You expand it to 15 or 20. That's the main objective of this particular summit. Then these are all the 6 organs I told you, right? So we have UN General Assembly, very important, you can remember also, ICJ, Trusteeship Council, Economic and Social Council, UNSC we call, UN Secretariat. So these are the 6, and Trusteeship Council is not functional now. And ICJ is the only thing which is headquartered outside New York. Okay. So what is the aim of UNSC? Peace and security of the world. To ensure peace and security, UNSC was formed. And when it was formed, 1946, of the UN Charter and headquartered in New York. Membership 15, 5 permanent and 10 non-permanent countries. So if you see 10 non-permanent also gets this representation. 2 from like Latin America, 2 from Western Europe, and like 1 from Eastern African, like European continent, and 5 from African and Asian states. So this is how 10 members will be get elected every 2 years. So once elected, after 2 years again, their membership goes away. They have to again contest. That is how this happens. Is like how Parliament also votes. Generally, secret ballot voting will happen, and with 193 member countries, 2/3 majority. Okay, so generally they'll be electing the members to the UNSC. And more than 50 members of the UN till now didn't have any time membership in UNSC. Out of 193 countries, 50 countries did not even step into UNSC. Right? That's the thing. It is highlighting what is the need. What are the issues we have? So categories of membership. You are dividing based on a continent, but you're not even including some continents into UNSC at all, right? And then question of veto. Why only veto? See, these are also 10 non-permanent countries part of UNSC, but only 5 countries are permanent and they only have veto. These 10 non-permanent countries, when they're members of UNSC also, they cannot have veto power, right? That's the main question. So, and regional representation is also the question. Africa, no representation. South America, no representation. In size of the council also, and what has to be the working methods. Because, UN didn't take any charge in some situations. Like, for example, in Russia-Ukraine war, although we have UN and it is functioning, why couldn't we stop till so far? What is the reason? That means it is also showing the inefficiency of UN. It couldn't stop Israel-Hamas war also. What happened in Gaza, we have seen. Large humanitarian crisis happened, but still why it couldn't be stopped. Then UNSC General Assembly also has, this relation also has to end. That means from General Assembly you are electing some members to UNSC, right? That means all the countries will be voting to the countries which give more funds or who are affluential and influential in the geopolitics. So this relation also has to end. Then India last time had this non-permanent membership in 21-22. So far 6 times it had this non-permanent membership. Then what are the needs? This type of question can be easily asked in mains. Non-representative council membership has to be removed. Okay, so it has to be more representative, and more financial contribution of non-permanent countries also have to increase. Because why P5 are able to control is they're giving large funding to UN. That's a simple logic. That is the reason all these countries also have major share in World Bank, IMF, etc. Okay, so their heads also all the time, if you see, will be either coming from US or European countries only. Okay, they'll be headed by these countries only. Then unable to discharge the basic functions. As I told you, they couldn't stop Russia-Ukraine war. Okay, you can take other egg. An imbalance of power. Only 5 are having veto and other are not having any power. And India's contribution in representation. So we have been the like democratic country without any conflict. We didn't take any side anytime. Like we also have this non-aligned movement. So we are educating all the middle path all the time, right? So we have helped all the countries during COVID-19 through vaccine diplomacy and all. So India is expanding and it is giving leverage for all the countries to expand also. Third world countries, you can say. But why still India is deprived of membership is the question, right? So these are the things. Then challenges is mainly lack of political will, especially who is stopping us is China. Except China, all 4 countries are in support of India's membership in UNSC. Even Russia, a good friend, in UK, France, US, everyone is supporting us. But only one who is stopping is China. Even in NST also, nuclear supplies group also, it is because of China's stopping only we are not able to get membership in NST, nuclear supplies group. Then this coffee club or uniting for consensus. I told you just now. This was formed in opposite to G4. G4 countries are India, Japan, Brazil, in Germany. So in opposite we have these countries, Pakistan, here South Korea, Brazil, Argentina, and Germany, Italy. So apart from this, Turkey and other countries also join, but easily you can remember 4 for 4. Okay. Then Chinese opposition is also the main thing. Okay. So these are the main reasons why these reforms are not yet implemented in UNSC. Right. Then what is the way forward? India has long it is asking. That is the reason if you see when we visit any country or any foreign dignitary visit our country, they generally mention that we always support India in getting membership in UNSC. That's a common statement you will come across, right? Because out of 193 countries except China and 1 or 2 other countries, almost every country in the UN General Assembly is supporting us in getting UNSC membership, right? So for better representation, we have to see, you can advocate one easy thing is we need to democratize UN and we have to make it more inclusive and representative. That's a line of conclusion which you can use in your answer. Clear? Then answer this question. With reference to UNSC, consider the following statements. UN Charter provides for 15 permanent member countries of UNSC. Security Council has permanent residence at the UN headquarters in New York City. How many of these are correct? Only 2. This is 10 plus 5. Only 5 are permanent. These are non-permanent. But here it is 15 permanent. So wrong. Okay. And it is headquartered in New York. Right. Just now we have seen. So answer is only 2. The next topic is from SNT, where we are discussing about Chandrayaan 4. You might have seen in the recent times that Union Cabinet has given approval for Chandrayaan 4 mission. And along with that, we also were given approval for Venus mission, Chandrayaan 1, right? So, and you know already we have launched Chandrayaan 1, 2, 3 already, right? So, can anyone in the class explain me what is the difference between Chandrayaan 1, 2, 3? Raise your hands and answer. That's the thing. But main objective or what did it achieve in terms of achievements or objectives? In terms of launch vehicle, in terms of like the time of launch and different things will be there. But I'm asking in terms of objective and achievement. See, first thing we need to yes. That is the case of Chandrayaan 1. Okay. So Chandrayaan 1 was launched in the year 2008 using PSLV C11. Okay. So what is the main thing is here we didn't send any lander or rover, only orbiter was sent. Okay. Orbiter means it will be orbiting around the moon and it will observe what is there on the moon surface. Is there any presence of water? Such things. That's the main objective, right? And this was successful and we are the first country to confirm that there is presence of water on the moon using Chandrayaan 1 related data, right? That's the main thing we need to understand. Then coming to Chandrayaan 2, you know, here we have launched this in 2019. Here GSLV MK3 we have used, Mark 3. But here if you see, there is orbiter, lander and rover. Okay, orbiter will orbit around the moon, lander will land on the moon, okay, and out of which a rover will be coming out. Rover is nothing but a robotic module which will be walking on the surface of the moon. It will conduct some in situ experiments on the moon. That means it will find out what type of elements are there on the moon surface. Okay, so is there any volcanism or is there any earthquakes that are happening on the moon and all? All those things will be found out by the robotic rover. So we have named this lander as Vikram. Rover is Pragyan. Pragyan means wisdom. That's what we get. So what actually happened? This orbiter is successful, right? It is orbiting, but still, you know, lander and rover has crash landed or hard landing happened instead of soft landing. That means we couldn't achieve much because of this, except the orbiter side. And then this was launched in 2023. Okay, July we have launched and it entered into the moon surface on August. Okay, in the month of August you can say. Here also it's the case of GSLV MK3. And you know, here we didn't send again an orbiter because this orbiter is functional and we only have sent the crash landed lander and rover. Okay, So with the same names again, and now we successfully soft landed. So this soft landing happened in Chandrayaan. Soft landing is nothing but safely landing without any crash. Okay, so that happened for the first time, and we became the fourth country to soft land on the moon. Okay, what are all other countries? USA, USSR, China. So these are other three countries which already have soft landed on the moon. But we became the very first country to land on the southern pole of the moon. Okay, so that is the thing you need to understand. Why? Because I'll show at the end. So when Mangalyaan was launched, UPSC have asked a question on in which particular in Mangalyaan and all. India became the fourth country or fifth country, like that. They're asking the country wise also. Okay, you need to remember, right? So to soft land, we are the fourth, and to land on the southern pole, we are the very first country, right? So, and like we also have found certain important valuable information from this lander and rover, right? So we found that there are certain chemicals, and we also found there is plasma that is existing on the moon. Okay, volcanism is also seen. So these are certain observations that we have found from Chandrayaan 3. Then what is the objective of Chandrayaan 4? So Chandrayaan 4 has two components. First thing is, see, we already have tested landing now through Chandrayaan 3. But now we wanted to get some samples from the moon. That means this rover will be taking certain samples like sand, rock, or whatever the things that are there on the moon surface. It will take that and it will be giving to the transfer module, ascending module, descending module. Along with transfer module will be there. That means some process will happen. So the robotic module will hand over to the transfer module. The transfer module will come. That means it will give back to the re-entry module. This re-entry module will bring the samples that are collected on the lunar surface back to the Earth. Okay, you understand? This rover will not actually come back. So the land, actually the area where it landed was named as Shivashakti Point, right? So that's the thing. But here we are again trying to get some samples back for the first time, right? That is how Chandrayaan 4 is significant for us. Not only this, in second thing we are trying to do is, we are trying to make an Indian land on the moon. This is planned for 2040. Okay, that means like how Neil Armstrong from USA have landed on moon in 1967 through Apollo 11 mission. Same way we are also trying to send any one Indian to land on the moon using this Chandrayaan 4 mission, right? So this will also be launched with GSLV only, or next generation launch vehicle also can be used. I don't think so, but it may happen. But these two things are there. Okay, so you have to understand it is having two components of bringing samples and also trying to land Indians on the moon, right? So here you also need to understand, as India has landed on the southern pole, there is also another mission of China, Chang'e 6 mission of China. Okay, this is also similar mission. What is the slight difference is, Chang'e 6 mission also became the very first mission where it has landed on the far side of the moon. We landed on the southern pole. Okay, so understand these type of things can be asked. Southern pole of the moon is this, right? So and far side of the moon is this. That means if you see this is the Earth. Okay, so always Earth and moon rotates around itself in the same speed. That is the reason all the time from the Earth we'll only watch this side of the moon. The other side of the moon, which is not visible to the Earth, we call it as the far side of the moon. So China's Chang'e 6 mission has landed on this side of the moon. It became the very first country to land on the far side of the moon. This we call it as the near side. Okay. So this is a southern pole. This is a difference you need to understand, right? So otherwise they can confuse with the options, right? Then let us understand more in detail. I told you already. So to return something from the moon, sample entry mission, and also to collect the lunar samples from analysis. In Chandrayaan 3, in continuation, we are launching this, and it was going to use this lunar landing by 2040. That is the expected timeline. And as part of this, we also wanted to launch our own space station also, right? So, space station will be used as a platform to stay for some time, like at least 2 days or 3 days in space, and to conduct some experiments in space, astronomical experiments and all. So already we have International Space Station. That was a collaboration of 5 countries developed in 1998. But like USA, Russia, Canada, all these countries are part of it. But now Russia, because of its relations with USA, it said like we are walking out of International Space Station, and it is also planning to develop its own. And China is already in the process of developing its own station, Tiangong, we call, right? That's the name of the Chinese own space station. The same lines, India also is planning to develop its own space station. Space station is nothing but like a lodge where you generally go for another place and you'll be staying there, right? Same way, to conduct some astronomical experiments in space, you will be using this a place to stay. That is a International Space Station, and we are launching this. We are planning to make this into reality by 2035, and it was named as Bharatiya Antariksha Station. So you can see the differences here: Chandrayaan 1 and Chandrayaan 2, right? So certain facts are given. You can understand it. Then other planetary missions. Okay, Chandrayaan 1 2008, I told you PSLV. It detected water on the moon. So we became the very first country to confirm the presence of water. Till then, we only have the doubt whether water is there or not. But it was proven by Chandrayaan 1, the data. And India became the fifth country to reach the lunar surface orbit. Okay, so fifth country with Chandrayaan 1. Okay, understand that. Then Mangalyaan in 2003, 2013, MOM mission also we call. Mangalyaan orbiter mission. Mangalyaan means towards Mars. Okay, next planet towards of the Earth, we have Mars, right? So it will orbit around the Mars and it will give same type of information what is there on the surface of the Mars and all. So it is a very first interplanetary mission. That means other than the Earth, we have stepped into other planetary exploration only through this Mangalyaan or Mars mission. Then it reached the Mars orbit and it also has shown our technology. That means we can reach the other planet, because you know the main question for all these things is this is a fundamental question. To answer this only, we have all these missions. Okay. So now how we have Mangalyaan already launched in 2013. Now we are planning for Shukrayaan, Venus mission, right? So that's the thing. That means, as you know, like Earth is also facing so many problems and population pressure and anything, exploitation of resources. In future, if anything happens on the Earth, is there any life beyond? That's the main question of all the space explorations, right? So that's the main thing. And you know, Chandrayaan 2, we already have seen this setback because we have crash landed. In 2003, we were successful. Then Chandrayaan 4, why it is so significant? They can ask you these type of things. So technological advancement, because you are trying to return something from the moon for the first time. That means you are improving in terms of technology. At the same time, lunar sample collection is also not that easy. And foundation for manned mission. As I told you, one person is going to land on the moon by 2040. So that is also how it is significant. And all this technology is getting indigenously developed. Okay, so that means we are not using any foreign technology in Chandrayaan 4. Then it is also boosted to space industry. That means not only ISRO will give tenders and all these things to different other aerospace agencies, right? So how space industry is also getting benefited out of it, and it is also making India as a global space leader, right? And through Mangalyaan mission, interestingly, we became the very first country to launch successful mission to Mars in the very first attempt. Not in overall, but in the very first attempt, we have reached the Mars successfully. In that regard, we are the very first country, right? So other times, you know, like before that, India was shown like a country which is out of the allied space club. I told you once also in the class, I think. So there was a cartoon in the New York Times which has shown that there is a group, okay, allied group sitting inside, like US, UK, France, all these countries sitting inside, and India was actually shown with one person holding a buffalo or cattle. Okay, so they were barred from entry into the allied space club. But the things changed. In India, after achieving the success in Mangalyaan, have shown the reverse. India sitting inside, and all these countries outside. That is how it has changed over a period of time. Now you know India is also launching low-cost space exploration missions, right? You know the Hollywood movies are actually costing more than what we are launching through these missions, right? So it is very less than a Hollywood movie also. So that's the main thing. So this is a question asked in 2016. See, Mangalyaan launched by ISRO is called Mars Orbiter mission. It's very clear. India was the second country to have spacecraft orbiter of the USA. You don't know this. Let's wait. But India made only country to be successful in making the spacecraft orbit the Mars in its very first attempt. you know 1 and 3 are correct, right? So that means you can narrow down between two options. It became the fourth country to reach Mars, not the second country. So answer here is 1 and 3 only. That is how you need to remember which country or what is the position of India by achieving that particular feat. Okay, because UPSC can ask. Then next topic is PM Asha. Okay, so what is the scheme? Very important scheme in terms of economy and agriculture. Why it was launched is mainly, you know, in agriculture the main challenge is price stability will not be there. Volatility in prices, right? Or procurement challenges is also the main thing, right? To address these issues and to ensure the farmers get the fair price and there has to be price stability, Union Cabinet has extended the implementation of this particular scheme. Okay, it translates to Pradhan Mantri Annadata Aay Sanrakshan Abhiyan. This is the code, okay, of PM Asha. You need not remember the full form, just remember the scheme. So here the main aim is to get fair prices and ensure price stability. Okay, so that means there should not be any volatility in the prices. So it was given almost 35,000 crore in this budget, and the time period of extension is till 2025-26. Also, we are going to implement this scheme. So main objective is to reduce the imports, especially, you know, like in rice and wheat we are self-sufficient, even in milk also. But in certain aspects which are very important, like oil seeds and pulses, we are still an import dependent country in pulses and oil seeds. To reduce that import dependency only, this scheme was actually extended, right? So it has three components in it. Okay, so we'll understand it. But first thing you need to understand, 100% procurement of certain crops, especially I told you pulses and oil seeds, because they're already not sufficient in India, right? We are not having adequate quantity of pulses and oil seeds. So we wanted to increase this self-sufficiency, and whatever that is produced in India, we need to procure all of them. That's the main thing. So to have remunerative prices for the farmers who generally cultivate these, and also to have minimum support price for them. And this was actually announced. PM Asha as a scheme was announced originally in 2018 budget, but now it was extended, okay, in its implementation. And procurement mechanism will be enhanced further. So these are the three main things. A very high chance of asking this in the mains in the coming years, okay, because it has three components. One is price support system. What is price support system? As I just told you, the main intention of the program is to give fair price and also stabilize the prices. That means how government is going to provide some support in case of any distress sale. Distress sale means, for example, if there is excess crop, that means in that particular locality, all the farmers have produced or they have cultivated the same type of crop. Excess crop has come to the market. Then will you have proper price for it? No, that is a distress sale. There actually in that situation, the farmer was compelled actually to sell below the market price because no one is actually willing to buy your crop, right? That means he was actually forced to sell. That is the reason if you see in the newspapers and all also, sometimes you'll see farmers throwing tomatoes on the road, right? Because they're not getting the minimum price. The actual cost is more. In turn, what they're getting is very less. So that should not actually happen. So to ensure fair price and stability in prices, this price support scheme was actually introduced. Then next component is price deficiency payment system or scheme. So what actually happens is there is two things here. So what is one? Market price? Okay. So market price, if it is very less, then it is like government is giving some assurance through MSP, minimum support price, right? For example, if tomato now is selling 10 rupees per kg in market, right? But if you sell and if you generally give the same 10 rupees for the farmer, will that be remunerative for the farmer according to what he has spent and all? No. That means in that situation, government will say MSP for tomato will be 15 or 20 rupees per kg, right? So in any situation, if the farmer was actually compelled to sell at the market price, then what government will be doing is this deficiency, that means that this difference between market price and MSP will be actually paid by government to the market dealer. Okay, So there won't be any procurement, but the difference between the market price and MSP will be paid by the government to the farmer. Okay, so that is what the price deficiencies payment scheme. This was actually introduced in the state of Madhya Pradesh. Later it was introduced in Haryana also. And then we have inspired from that particular program and we made it part of PM Asha all over India. Then we also have private procurement and stockist scheme. So, you know, like generally, most of the times procurement happens in India in terms of food grain through NAFED, National Agriculture Federation, oil seeds and pulses, that is procured by these organizations, and then other food grains by FCI, Food Corporation of India, right? So generally what happens is the farmer will be taking all his crop and he'll sell in the market, or he'll store for the time being in the stock or godowns or warehouses we call. Then when he's selling in the market, if it is below the market price, then government through FCI will be giving that MSP and it will take the crop from the farmer and generally they'll try to distribute first in the PDS. But if they have still in excess, they'll be storing them in the godown so that in case in future, if the prices again crash or if there is no proper crop because of monsoon or heavy rains and all, then that extra crop will be used again to ensure food security in the country. That is the main mechanism. But in general, what happens is, as public has certain limitations in operations and all, because budget support will not be there and corruption will be there, you know, like lack of proper facilities also is one problem. So to stop all these things, we are ensuring private also participates in the procurement through stockist program. That means stock will be maintained by the private. They'll only take part in the procurement also, not only with NAFED and FCI. Private participation is also encouraged. Through these things, we are trying to ensure no crop is actually uncovered. That means we are trying to address every crop by giving some minimum support, price support system. In case if he sells in the below market price also, then government is going to pay the differentiation in the form of deficiency payment, and not only public procurement, private procurement. In all the way, we are trying to ensure that farmer is getting benefited out of this particular program, right? And we also have one target of doubling the farmer's income by 2022. That's the target we have kept. But you know, it was not realized. Okay. In that respect only, we have a committee formed called Ashok Dalwai Committee. So this Ashok Dalwai Committee was formed especially to suggest what are the ways and means through which we can increase or double the farmer's income. And you know, they generally don't even get half of their expenditure on the crop, right? That's the main reality. So these are the things. So here in the price support system, NAFED, National Agriculture Federation, which procures oil seeds and pulses along with FCI, will be taking 25% of the marketable surplus and they'll be procured and stored in the godowns. Okay? If it is surplus only, if it is not in surplus, they'll use it for PDS, right? So then government procures this along with the costs. Okay, so they have to bear the costs and losses also. Losses in the sense, you know, like sometimes due to when they carry, sometimes due to rain or anything, it may actually like loss also. Then price deficiency payment. Here the difference between mandi price means market price and MSP will be paid. Okay, for oil seeds and pulses. Mandi means market. And here there won't be any physical procurement. Government is not procuring, but the difference is being paid by the government between the market price and the MSP. Then it was modeled on the lines of Madhya Pradesh and Haryana program that they have implemented like our Rait Bandhu. So then private procurement and stockist scheme, here it is in selected districts only. We are not implementing all over. And this is especially for oil seeds and etc. So when any fall, when there is any fall in the prices of oil seeds below the market price or minimum support price, then private agencies will be encouraged by the government to procure and keep them as a stock so that in future that can be used. But what are the issues? Why are we not able to get the benefits from this particular program means there is very low awareness about MSP. You can understand only 24% of the households, okay, so they are aware of MSP. That in case if you are not getting proper price for your crop, that government is going to buy at MSP. That awareness is also not there. Only it was found that 24% are aware of MSP mechanism, right? That's the main thing. That is the reason why you can write in any answer. First thing, one way forward is create awareness. Okay, so for anything. and then only 6% of the farmers are selling it MSP. Although we have MSP as a mechanism, but only 6% are selling it MSP, because again, if they don't know, and even if they are trying to bring the crop to the market and all, what they'll think is they have to pay certain rent for the go down if they don't want to sell at that moment, or if they wanted to take back to the village, the transportation cost also gets added, right? So that's the reasons, all thinking all these reasons, generally they try to sell at the low market price only, because perishable commodities will be there, transportation costs, go down rents, all these things, that will again increase the expenditure. That's the main thing why they're compelled to sell at the below market price. And limited procurement infrastructure. Even FCI is also not having robust mechanism, okay, with respect to procurement. Then 79% of the farmers are dissatisfied with MSP because of delay in payments and infrastructural issues and all. So this is what suggested in the, or it was found in the Niti Aayog report of 2016. Delayed payments is also not making the farmers to feel comfortable with MSP. So these are the crops. Presently we have 23 crops listed under MSP. MSP as a topic is very, very important and favorite area of UPSC. Many times they have asked what are the crops that are under MSP. Okay, so directly and indirectly they're asking many questions, and you have to remember these things. Okay, so 14 Kharif crops and 7 Rabi crops. Kharif means monsoon crops and Rabi means winter crops. So see, you need not remember all the crops, but just if you read all the crops once and twice, at least you can eliminate, okay, by seeing the option. And you also have certain crops like copra, coconut, okay. D has to coconut, this is dried, and this is D has coconut, and jute, sugarcane. For sugarcane, we generally don't call it MSP, but we call it as fair and remunerative price, FRP we call, right? So these are things. And most importantly, this is important. So who actually recommends MSP? It is CACP, Commission on Agriculture Costs and Prices. CACP, that is a statutory body who will actually decide how much has to be MSP. They'll just recommend based on the cost of the particular production and different factors. What are the factors I'll explain in a while. But CACP will recommend this can be MSP for rice, this can be for wheat, etc. and all. Then who will take the final call? It is Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, headed by the Prime Minister, CCEA. Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, one of the Cabinet Committee headed by the Prime Minister, they will take the final call. Okay, so if they say like 150 rupees have to be paid, they can increase it to 180 according to their own thing. Okay, so at the point of them thinking about the financial trouble that India may have and all things, so they will take the approval, and here they only recommends. Okay, so this is one you have to understand, and you have to understand MSP doesn't have any legal backing. That means there is no law in India so far which is making it legal or statutory. Okay, so we are practicing it as an institutional mechanism. That's it. Okay, that is the reason, if you have remembered, former protests also I told you in 2020-21, we have 3 farm laws that were introduced in Indian Parliament and got passed. Okay, why farmers are not happy with the farm laws is they are asking mainly that this MSP will get legalized, but there is no provision in the farm laws which is legalizing MSP at that point of time. So they have again they have resorted to large scale protests and all, and because of the pressure they have formed as a pressure group on the government, and government has repealed the farm laws. That means actually these 3 got passed in the Parliament, but still because of the pressure they faced from the farmers, they have taken back the law. It is the Parliament who will enact the law, who can also take back the law. Repealing is also with the Parliament. Okay, keep this in mind. So then MSP is not having any such mechanism. So these are the 3 ways. Okay, so generally this is used, A2 plus FL is the method which is used to calculate how much has to be given as MSP. A2 means you can see all the expenditure that a farmer spends, okay, in producing some particular crop. That is what we call A2. FL means family labor, right? Like when the husband is working, along with him, family means wife, children also will accompany, right? That means they are not getting any pay, but still they're contributing some way. If they generally don't contribute and if they take any other employment, they'll be getting something. But Here their pay is actually unpaid, but still they're contributing. So taking that also into consideration, A2 plus FL, we are now granting MSP, right? A2 plus FL. Then what is C2? This is all other extra cost, like like using tractors or the rents and all that. Generally, the farmers have to pay. So this is the thing. Okay. So, but you have to remember, MS Swaminathan Committee, who is considered as the father of Green Revolution. So he has recommended that MSP has to be 150 times of the cost of produce. Okay. So that means if you spend 100 rupees. Okay. So 100 means how much has to be spent? 100 plus 50 means you need to give 250 rupees as the MSP for that 100 rupees that farmer has spent. Then extra 100, 150 rupees will be there, no? That can be used for the next crop to buy inputs or something, right? So that is how he said at least 150 times or 1.5 times more than what is the actual cost of production that has to be given as MSP by the government to the farmers. But this was not actually implemented so far. That's a worst state. And you need to know MSP means a minimum price. Okay. So that means, as I just told you, the case of tomato, if you are compelled to sell at 10 rupees, government is giving some assurance that you need not sell at 10 rupees, I'll buy. Okay. How much ever or however the crop may be, if it is rotten or if it is damaged because of rains and all also, I'll be buying it 15 rupees or 20 rupees, that extra that we are giving as assurance from the government side. So calculation, I told you, 1.5 times the cost of production. That is the main thing which was actually suggested. But most importantly, it doesn't have any legal basis. Okay, so this is what informed protests I told you. That's the main reason also. Objective says, why are we giving MSP? To give the guarantee to the farmer and then to also ensure food security and then protection from the price drop, right? If you're not getting any proper price, everyone will start leaving agriculture and they start taking another form of employment. Then how can you ensure food security, right? It should be a mechanism to address drop in prices, and then it also incentivizes desirable crop. That means if you are making any crop under MSP, then it will become an incentivization for the farmers also to take that particular crop for cultivation, right? It will encourage some persons from taking that crop, okay, to take that crop for cultivation. So this is the thing. And importance is it will prevent price volatility, and it also guarantee you the minimum price in the form of surety, and it also controls the crop shorts in supply. Okay, so any damage that happen also that can be there. In crop diversification, if that doesn't happen, what generally happens? Most of the farmers will try to only produce rice or wheat, only one or two, right? But if you're diversifying and if you're giving 23 crops MSP, then for every crop you produce also they will be given certain MSP, right? So that is how it helps in food security. Why this is important? You can see a previous year question. What do you mean by MSP? How will MSP rescue the farmers from low income trap? A very easy question asked in 2019. But only once if you know what are the issues involved and all, you can write a better answer. Right? But what is the negative aspect? You can see another question on MSP in the prelims also. That is why I told you very important topic in GS3 economy. Okay. So what is the challenge here is, although we are giving MSP, okay, that is not actually sufficient. That's the one factor, negative side. And then second factor is only 23 crops are listed in MSP. That means all the farmers will try to produce one or another of 23 only. Certain crops like millets, which can grow in any type of climate with little water also, are not actually covered under MSP. That's the main thing, right? So that means you need to increase the ambit of MSP, right? So that farmers will diversify their crops more better. Climate resilient agriculture, all these things can happen only with broadening the idea of MSP. So what is the answer for this? In the case all cereals, pulses, oilseeds, procurement at MSP is unlimited in any state. In case cereals, pulses, MSP is fixed in any state at a level to which the market price will never rise. So in which of these you generally see the MSP getting implemented? See, why are you taking that much time? Is it all cereals, all pulses and all seeds? Then this is a statement, and you can see extreme statements are given as a clue. Unlimited. Will anything be unlimited? This statement is wrong. Then second, MSP is fixed in any state and will never rise. That's the way how UPSC has given. See, that is what I'm saying. If the question appears to be difficult, it is giving you some clue. It is you who have to find that clue, right? Then next topic of discussions, again another important topic in economy is periodic labor force survey. Recently, 7th edition of periodic labor force survey was released by whom? National Sample Survey Office. Okay, NSSO. So this is a 7th annual report, and from 2017 they are bringing this report. Okay, NSSO. What is the reason is this is the only report which you can use to quote any data related to employment and unemployment. Okay, so any government related data. So that is what I say every time in economy. Please try to use only government sources to quote any data, either RBI websites or Finance Ministry budget, economic survey, or such data, right? So with respect to employment and unemployment rate, this is the best source which you can use and quote, right, for mains. And this is conducted between this time period. Okay, so between July 2023 and June 2024, data was compiled and they have given certain things. So it was launched in 2017. Earlier we used to have employment and unemployment survey. This was replaced with periodic labor force survey, right? And then what is the objective? Availability of labor force in the market. To understand how much is the availability, we have this data. So objective is here to understand three things mainly. Okay, one is labor force participation rate. What is labor force participation rate? In the percentage of population, how much labor is available. Okay, that means who is actually available, who are ready to work. Okay, so these will be considered as labor force. Working force population rate or working population rate means who are already working in the terms of population percentage, that we call it as working population rate. Then unemployment rate means who are actually not finding any employment. So in these three criteria, this periodic labor force survey collects some data in rural areas, in urban areas, on weekly status and current weekly status. They'll be assessing the data and they're giving to understand. So based on that only, see if there is very high unemployment. And what has to be done from the side of the government? Skilling programs, or that means it needs to increase welfareism. Yes or no? Unemployment beyond a certain level is not good for the economy. If you see, India's growth rate is termed to be jobless growth rate, right? It's not a very good sign for the Indian economy. What we are realizing is jobless growth rate. That means through AIs or automation or something, we are having that growth which is seen, but actually we are not having that through job creation. If job creation happens, then only consumption, everything happens in a cyclic manner, right? Otherwise, if unemployment is there, poverty, all of the factors also gets impacted. Hunger, nutrition, all these things, right? Education, quality of life and all, right? So if you see here, the indicators I told you, in terms of these, generally the data will be assessed. I told you all this. So you can take these points also. What is found is, in terms of labor force participation, there is increase that was observed. Increase in the term, that means above 15 years. You know, working age population is 15 to 59 years. So generally, so among that particular population bracket, there is increase in the labor force participation. That means who are seeking work or who are available for work or increasing in the recent times. That was observed. In rural areas, you can see from 50% it was increased to 63%. That means more persons are seeking work. In urban areas also 47 to 52, 5% increase. Males from 75% to 78, and from females it is 23 to 41. This is very important data, okay, because that's a very good sign. That means more women are now ready to work or willing to work or seek any type of work. Okay, this data you can use. Then there is also increasing in the worker population rate. Okay, so what you can see here is rural areas it increased from 48 to 62, from 43 to 49 in urban, male from 71 to 76, and from female also you can see 22 to 40. Right, in these aspects it has shown an increase. But unemployment rate, if you see, it is showing a sign of decline or decrease. So unemployment in rural areas from 5.3 decreased to 2.5 between this period. In urban areas from 7 to 5.1, male from 6.1 to 3.2, and in females it is from 5.6 to 3.2. Okay, so that means according to this data, everything is going on smooth. Okay, but again, there are questions regarding this data, how authentic they are. So that is a debatable issue, but we are not going with it. So then can you name, when any question is asked, okay, so what you are going to write or what are you expected to write is, always you need to give certain schemes also in your support. What are the schemes which are helpful? Very good. MG Narega, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee. This is implemented by Ministry of Rural Development, where you will be given 100 days of guarantee work for any adult unskilled labor, right? If you're not providing work for certain time, you're eligible for allowance also, compensation allowance also will be given. Then Stand Up India, Startup India, Skill India, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Swaroj Rozgar Yojana, PMEGP we have. PMEGP means Pradhan Mantri or Prime Minister Employment Guarantee Program. Okay, so we have many other programs, okay, directly or indirectly, which are helping in increase of the employment opportunities. Okay, so then next important topic we have is India and Myanmar related border issue. Okay, so why? Because in the recent times, the countries like Myanmar and Bangladesh, they are facing internal crisis, political crisis and all, right? And when any political crisis happen, there will be migration from that particular country to other countries. So, and you also have to keep in mind here, one most important thing is India and Myanmar share almost 1600-kilometer boundary. Okay, so in which states generally share border with Myanmar? Nagaland, Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh, and Mizoram. 4 states of India, right? So you people are very intelligent. Okay, and one most important thing is, so we didn't fence entire boundary with Myanmar. That's the main thing. Okay, why? Because like when we had that division, okay, Burma was once part of British India. Later it was separated in 1935 only. At that point of time, British did not take many things into consideration. They just had drawn a line, like how easy to draw a line on paper. Same way they have drawn. So because of which, what happened is many communities, they have that ethnic attachment or all these setups and all. So then because of that, what is found is some people, okay, so they were separated now because of the boundary line. So to have good relations and maintain that cultural contact, we thought of giving them a chance, okay, through free movement regime. That means 16 kilometers from the border, a person can cross the border without visa, because once if you cross the border to any country, you need to have visa. That means that country's permission, right? But in free movement regime, this country and India and Myanmar will not have any visa from 16 kilometers from the border. Okay, so the persons can enter and again they can sell or they can have some contact with their own ones in the border and they can again return back. So that is a free movement regime. But now if you know, in the recent times, especially in this year starting only, Ministry of Home Affairs said we are trying to scrap this free movement regime. That means we are intending to end this free movement regime. That means there has to be some problem, otherwise why we are ending, right? So what is the main issue is drugs. Okay, so you can see, as I have shown you here, golden triangle, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand. So these 3 countries have become the home of most of the opium and drugs, right? And on the other side, we have golden crescent, this side, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, right? So that is also one problem. That means drugs is one issue, then fake currencies, right? Then insurgency, and like Myanmar also. So Myanmar is also helping some anti-insurgent, like insurgent groups in India to destabilize India and all. So that's also one thing we had. At the same time, arms and ammunition is also getting supplied, right? So like this, we have many issues that are coming from foreign soil to destabilize India. In that aspect, we thought what is good, more than that, what should not actually happen, that is happening. And we started off thinking this ending of free movement regime. So in the recent times also, that's the reason why this was in news. So this is all that how India is sharing border with different countries. Currently, we are sharing border with 7 countries, and largest border is with respect to Bangladesh, right? These type of questions can be expected. Like they can ask in the next mains with respect to Bangladesh or Myanmar, because both of the countries are in crisis. So, in internal security point of view, they can ask you what will be the problems that India has to face from these uncertainties in the neighboring countries, right? So, largest boundary with Bangladesh, next is China. Okay, so next important thing is, so like even Ministry of Home Affairs is also believing that this, because of free movement regime only, this Manipur violence that happened in the last year, especially between Meiteis and Kukis, so that is actually fueled by Myanmar. Okay, so they got all the supplies and arms and money, everything from Myanmar. So that intensity got increased because of Myanmar border only. That is what Ministry of Home Affairs is actually considering. That is the reason they said we are starting fencing of the border. Okay, free movement will end, and now border fencing will happen. Border fencing means these countries, these people cannot actually enter now without any valid visa. They cannot cross the border, right? Smart fencing is being proposed. So what you need to understand is this actually free movement regime was announced in the year 2018, and then which was ended in this year ending only. But now we started almost 30 kilometers of fencing is done. Okay, out of 1600 kilometers, somewhere around 200 kilometers is unfenced. Rest of the thing is already fenced. The 200 kilometer is the thing which can be used to cross the borders. But not only the people, insurgent groups are also crossing the border, right? Even illegal cattle smuggling is also being done. Drugs, arms, and all these things are being planned. So that is the reason. And like what is the reason for Manipur ethnic violence? It's all just about ST status. Okay. So like Meiteis, a brief explanation I'll just give you so that you'll understand. Manipur is actually the home of Meitei community. Okay. And Meiteis are living in the valleys of Manipur, and some population of Nagas are also there in Manipur. They're living in the hilly tracts. Okay. But at that point of time before the advent of British, this is the setup. And later British rule started. But British was initially not interested in the northeastern area and all. But later on, they were actually having this idea of exploiting the forests and all in the northeast. So what happened is, from Burma, that is Myanmar, there are some like raids that were made into Manipur. Okay, so by those ruling class or whatever the class. At that point of time, the kingdom of Manipur or the king of Manipur have asked the British some help. Okay, so how to protect from Burma or Myanmar raids and all. So at that point of time, he said like we'll bring some local from other areas and we'll settle them to safeguard you. Okay, from the raids and all. In that way, Kukis were brought in by the British into Manipur to safeguard against the Burmese raids. Later on, even Anglo-Burmese war also happened. That's a different story. But now what happened, what is the true picture is, Meiteis were the ruling class, right? They are the actual persons, but they got limited in a very small geographical area. And majority of the Kukis are controlling maximum geographical area. They were actually brought from outside by the British to settle, to safeguard the Meiteis. Okay. But what actually happened is, these Kukis, they are very less in population, but they are having large geographical area under their control, especially hilly areas and all. But Meiteis, they are having high population, but very limited area of control. And these Kukis also have ST status. Okay, so now the main demand was put forward by Meiteis that we also want ST status, because we are the original persons and now we are confined ourselves to one particular land, right, very small, and they are getting all the due benefits. So we also want the same benefits. And these people said, if you start giving ST status to Meiteis, we also gets deprived, right? That means you need to give some share from the already existing thing, right? That's the way how Manipur violence have broken out. Okay, this is a brief explanation. So it was observed that from Manipur also there is some sponsor to this fueling of this violence. Then what is the free movement regime? I told you, without a visa, you can enter and cross the border for some time. And then we have this concept of one nation or one border, one body guarding force also, right? So like in India, we have Pakistan and Bangladesh borders guarded by whom? Border security force, right? So this is only in other areas. But in LAC or LOC with Pakistan, Indian Army. Indian Army will guard in LOC, right? And then with China, ITBP, Indo-Tibetan Border Police. And in LAC, also Indian Army. Then Nepal and Bhutan, SSP, Sashastra Seema Bal. Actually, these are porous borders. But again, like because of fake currency and other problems, we started bordering them also. Initially, they were open border or porous borders. Okay, we didn't have any force. Later on, only we have established this. Then with Myanmar, Assam Rifles. This is the oldest paramilitary force. So like this we have, for every one border, one guarding force is there. Okay, and BSF is the largest border guarding force in the world. Okay, in terms of area, because it covers both Bangladesh and Pakistan. And Bangladesh almost 4,000 kilometers, right? So then why border management is very much important, a topic from internal security point of view. So counter-terrorism, right? We have so many insurgent groups, especially in Assam, Nagaland, Manipur also, right? So we are recently you have seen there is a peace accord with Tripura, insurgents and all, right? That we are settling organized crime, counter currencies and all these things, and cross-border insurgency, along with to protect your sovereignty also it is very much important, right? Securing the country's border and to regulate migration. From Myanmar, you especially have Rohingyas for crossing the border and staying illegally in India, right? We are not actually legally recognizing these people as Indian citizens. We always wanted to expedite them. Okay. Then, what are the issues with poor border management? Infiltration in illegal activities. I told you just now. Okay. So, infiltration of insurgents or any other persons in illegal activities like drugs, arms, ammunition, everything. Okay. And terrorism and insurgency, smuggling and trafficking, and cross-border crime. So, these are the main issues that, in case if you're not having effective border management, that you are going to face. Then, what has to be made? You can write this Madhukar Gupta committee. Okay, this has suggested that there has to be some issues that has to be tackled so that these threats and border protection will be more enhanced. Okay, so if you remember the committee in one domain, you can easily write that in the conclusion. Then next topic of discussion is contempt of court. Okay, so what is the context here? Means already judicial appointments have been always a controversy, because in India we know judges appoint themselves, right? So what actually happened is in the case of Jharkhand case, so there is already some recommendation that they have to be elevated to the High Court and all, but still center. So collegium once has finalized some names that they have to be appointed to Jharkhand High Court, but center is delaying the process because center has to do some background check and all through intelligence bureau, and they'll do that. Okay, when these appointments generally happen. So in that particular context, okay, so Jharkhand government has filed a case against center saying already Supreme Court collegium has finalized certain names, and if the center is delaying, okay, it's nothing but contempt of court. Contempt of court means what? If you disobey the court order, or if you're not obeying the court order or instruction, that is what contempt of court. So they said government has to be filed for contempt of court. Okay, so that's the thing. And contempt of court is in two forms: civil contempt and criminal contempt. Civil contempt means if you generally don't obey the order, right? For example, if court has asked you to summon before the court, and if you generally don't attend, okay, so you need to show some reason also. For example, you also being an administrator also have to attend some cases on behalf of one particular thing, department or anything. At that point of time, if you are not in person, there to attend in the particular session and all, you need to show some reasons to the court that because of this reason, I'm not available on my behalf, I'm sending another person, right? So, but if you're not doing that either, then court will take it as a contempt. Okay, you'll be seeing this very often in the news also, right? Then what is criminal contempt? That means if you make any derogatory remarks against the court, okay, that for example, constructive criticism is again welcomed by any judiciary. But if you make any remark, seeing the remark, the entire judiciary faith or the faith that Indian public or Indian society had on Indian judiciary may erode. That will again qualify as a criminal contempt. That means if you are making any remark that is lowering or it is trying to weaken the stature of the judiciary among the Indian society or the mindset that we call it as a criminal contempt. Okay. So first thing you need to remember, this contempt provision was not part of original constitution. Okay. So it was added by Contempt of Court Act of 1971, which was passed by Parliament of India later on. It was not originally part of Indian constitution. And like even if you are using your fundamental freedom of speech and expression, okay, without restriction, that means if you use your speech and expression and make a derogatory mark against the judiciary, then it falls as contempt of court, right? That happened once in the case of Prashant Bhushan case also. One of the Supreme Court judge, okay, so very famous judge, he made a remark against the Supreme Court. So that was taken by the court as a contempt of court. But seeing his like commitment towards judiciary and the experience that he had and all, they just imposed 1 rupee punishment. See, 1 rupee is not a big thing, but they wanted to show that, right? So that means if you repeat it for the next time, then we'll take a serious note. In that way, they have warned him, right? So that's the thing you need to understand. So that is a brief thing. This is a history of this particular case I told you already. So judicial delays is nothing but you are violating the contempt of court or judicial efficiency. Any example? See, if any judgment was passed, for example, let us take any controversial judgment, like see if this you can say abolition of adultery or decriminalizing homosexual relationship. Okay, so like there will be some section who will welcome it, who will not welcome it. Okay, so if you make any rationale, so and if see for example now section 377 of IPC was not a crime, homosexual relationships, right? So but in case if you say like what is a like factor, so you can say like this can be done or this cannot be done, that is a constructive criticism. But in case if you question on what basis the judge has taken, or if you discuss on what grounds he had that eligibility to take the decision or to take that particular stand in giving the judgment and all, that amounts to be constructive criticism, the violation of constructive criticism. Okay, that means you cannot take anything. That is the reason if you see until unless judges removal motion is passed in the parliament, the judges conduct and performance cannot be discussed in the parliament, right? Because once if you start discussing the performance every time, there will be attack on judiciary, right? So every time one person will be supporting, one person will be opposing. That should not actually happen. The rationality can be questioned, but it should not actually make anything against the judge or his qualification or anything such. So if you make anything in such way that it will form under the contempt of court. Okay, constructive means without going into nitty-gritties. If you generally opine like this particular thing has to be done in this way, that forms under constructive criticism. Okay, like even Shabarimala entry also. One section is actually opposing, one section is welcoming it. Okay, whatever the stand you take, you have to give some rationale and you can explain that this can be done and all, but you cannot say why the court has given or this person has taken some bribe from the government. So that is the reason why he has given this verdict and all. In that way, eroding the faith of judiciary that it had in the public and all, such remarks cannot be entertained, which forms under contempt of court. Clear? So contempt means when you fail to comply with any order. Then 2 types of contempt I told you: civil, when you disobey the court order or if you breach any obligation that you need to perform. Then criminal means when you obstruct the performance or when you lower the dignity and functioning of the court. That is what a criminal contempt, right? Then next topic is Bharati. This is a small topic only, just to make you understand. Bharati Antariksha Station. I told you just now, International Space Station that India had planned on its own. Now this is also the part of Gaganyaan, right? Like as part of Gaganyaan, we are trying to send humans to the space. Okay, Indians especially for the first time. At least they'll be staying there for 3 days in the low Earth orbit. Okay. Most important thing is here you need to understand it is going to be in the low Earth orbit. Okay, low Earth orbit means which is from almost 200 kilometers to 180 kilometers to be precise, till almost 1000 kilometers from the surface of the Earth. We call it as low Earth orbit. So this will be stationed in the low Earth orbit and it will be observing it will be observing certain things on the Earth, or it will conduct some microgravity experiments. So what is microgravity? Beyond a certain level, the gravitational pull gets weakened. So in presence of zero gravity also, they need to train themselves to conduct those experiments. That is the reason if you see, they'll be floating in the space, right? So because of microgravity, right? So they'll be trained to be in that situation and they'll handle that position. And this is the thing you need to understand. And we are trying to place in 400-kilometer orbit from the surface of the Earth. And this is actually planned for 2035. Okay, so final call will be on 2035. And already we have certain countries. International Space Station, I told you, it is a collaboration between USA, Russia, Japan, Europe, and Canada. Okay, 5 countries. And now Russia said we wanted to withdraw from International Space Station. And China is developing its own Tiangong, I told you already, right? So initially India has named it as PEDX, but now we named it as Bharatiya Antariksha Station. Okay, so that's the difference. And you need to know, generally they'll be staying for 15 to 20 days. In the recent times, you might have seen Sunita Williams got stuck. So next topic we have is with respect to carbon dioxide to methanol conversion plant was inaugurated for the first time in India. We need to understand, like carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, right? And we are trying to become more clean and green in the recent times. So to decrease the amount of pollution that generally any power plant or any production that is involving the carbon dioxide has, we are trying to use the carbon capture and sequestration technology, right? Carbon capture means you can understand it here simple. So first thing here you need to understand certain industries which are using carbon dioxide, okay? So, like in the process, what happens is harmful emissions will be released, right? We need to capture this, right? So that carbon capture means what? Carbon dioxide which should not be released into the atmosphere will be captured and it will be sequestered. Sequestered means you will be storing that in the earth, soil or in the oceans which are considered to be carbon sinks, right? That's the process how we are using this. So in the process we are converting it to carbon dioxide to methanol. Methanol will be blended with diesel and we can supply it as a fuel for these vehicles. That is the process how we are using it. So why it is very important? Because for the first time we had such plant developed in India. So it was established in Pune. These type of facts can be asked in prelims as it is India's first. Okay, so they can ask you India's first carbon dioxide to methanol plant in Pune. Then this is a public-private partnership, okay, between IIT Delhi and there is a Thermax Limited. This is a private company. So they are collaborating in developing this. And main thing you have to understand is carbon capture and utilization. And it is also fulfilling our climate goals so that we are sequestering the carbon and making it clean. And Niti Aayog as well as Ministry of Petroleum also is trying to reduce the imports of petrol and diesel by blending. And 15% of methanol we wanted to blend in diesel, right? Same is the case of ethanol. So ethanol we are blending with petrol already. So 10% we already have reached the target and we kept 20% as the target by 2025. This is with respect to petrol, and with respect to diesel it is methanol. These are biofuels, right? So you need to keep these things in mind. So it is like a living lab for the research also. Living lab for carbon capture and utilization research. Okay, so this experiments will be converted so that carbon dioxide is getting converted into methanol, and this also decreases the number of carbon emissions. Okay, so because presently we have large scale coal based power plants, thermal power plants. So when you start capturing the carbon dioxide from it, we can decrease 30% of current emissions. So it is making us more clean. Then Pradhan Mantri Jan Jati Unnat Gram Abhiyan. Okay, so Jan Jati means the aboriginals of the tribal. Okay, so with respect to their development, a recent initiative was launched. Unnat means again model or holistic, and Gram means village. You can decode from the words itself. That means we wanted to make the tribal areas to get holistically developed or model villages type of thing in all other way, right? Like in health, education, infrastructure, in all aspects of the tribals, we wanted the all-round development. Now this is scheme. Here you can see this scheme was launched mainly to uplift the tribal people, especially in their districts, okay, blocks you can say. It targets 5 crore tribal people by addressing the gaps in infrastructure, education, health and livelihood opportunities. These are the main things along with skill training and access to healthcare. Then this mainly also tries to implement the Forest Rights Act. Okay, so like Forest Rights Act was passed in 2006. Okay, what is forest rights? The people, tribes generally rely on forests, right? So for all the means of livelihood. So this was passed by Indian Parliament in 2006. Okay. So to create three types of rights. One is land rights. That means if any particular tribal family, they are living on that particular land. Okay. That means one part of land, they are cultivating the same land from many years. Okay. At least from 3 generations. That means 75 years onwards from the 2006 deadline. That means it was passed in 2006 means before that 31st December 2005 is the cutoff date. From this date, you need to go to the 75 years back, and then from then if you can show that from 75 years I am cultivating on the same land, then that land ownership will be given in your name. Okay, maximum of 4 hectares will be given. This is for family, not for individual. Okay. So 4 hectares means 10 acres of land will be given on that person's name if he can show this condition, right? And most importantly, this land cannot be sold to any person other than a tribe. Okay. It cannot be exchanged, it cannot be gifted and all. Only through inheritance you can pass it on to the next one, right? Because if that is allowed, tribes again get exploited, right? So tribes in the name of land and all, easily they can grab the land. That is the reason prevent or like there is a complete protection from sale of land from tribe to non-tribe. You cannot sell any cost to non-tribe. Okay. So then you have use rights. And like from forest you will be getting most of the benefits, like minor forest produce, all the things, okay, like herbs, medicine, honey, okay, lac, etc. So all these things also are covered under use rights. That means the people who are living in that particular forest area have complete rights over use of those forest products. They can use, they can sell in the market, they can get benefit of it. That is the use right. And then there is also right to conserve. That means in the area where they live, they also have the right to conserve. That means they can take certain protective mechanisms to ensure that environment and forests are not actually threatened, right? So these are the 3 types of rights that Forest Rights Act is giving to the tribal people. Okay, this Forest Rights Act is also called as Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Protection of Rights Act of 2006. Okay, same act but different name. You can also call as FRA, Forest Rights Act, or this full name. Okay, so this question was also asked. Who is implementing FRA is a question. Okay, then it is the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. It is not the Ministry of Environment. First option they gave is Ministry of Environment. Okay, it is Ministry of Tribal Affairs who implement this program. Okay, then another topic of environment is there is a Commission for Air Quality Management which was in news in respect of stubble burning. Right, you need to know what is stubble burning. Whatever the leftover crop is there, generally, okay, farmers will put that to fire so that it will get cleared for the next crop. Right. So in respect, we have this body which is a statutory body. Right. Very important. You need to remember it is a statutory body created under same, okay, Commission on Air Quality Management of adjoining areas in NCR region of 2021. This act was passed by Indian Parliament. So this body was actually advised by Supreme Court of India, because every winter Delhi experiences worse pollution, right? So to tackle air pollution in Delhi, Supreme Court has advised to create a body. This is not all India body. This operates especially for NCR region, National Capital Territory region. So air quality index. So their main job here is to manage air quality, okay, to prevent pollution and all these things. So here you can see they have the powers of restricting certain activities. They can investigate and conduct research. Okay, so most importantly, whatever the ideas or whatever the advices they give, all those are binding in nature. Okay, very rarely this powers will be given, but it is binding. Okay, so and they are directly accountable to the Parliament. Okay, that means they are not answerable to the executive. That's the main thing. Same like Controller and Auditor General, who is also responsible to the Parliament of India directly. Then composition, chairperson, a person who will be a secretary level officer at the central government who have at least a term of 3 years or 70 years. Okay, so which is upper limit. He can work for 3 years, or if he reaches the age of 70 years, till then he will be qualified. Then 5 ex officio members also will be there from these states. Secretaries again, okay, so Delhi, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan and UP. Because all these states have this stubble burning, and this stubble burning impact is being seen in Delhi. The air movement will be there and all. So the Delhi is facing the, like you can say, smoke chamber. That is what gas chamber, smoke chamber and all. because of these issues. Then there are some full-time technical members also, right, with respect to environment who are having an idea, and non-governmental organizations also, along with CPCB, Central Pollution Control Board, ISRO, and we also have NITI Aayog members also getting representation in the body. Okay, very important body which can be asked. Next is Indo-Pacific Economic, Framework Partnership, IPEF. Okay, so this is a grouping or initiative among 13 countries from Indo-Pacific region, and India is also signatory to this IPF. So first most important thing which they can ask you is, this is not a free trade agreement. Okay, it's not a free trade agreement. No. Okay, that statement can be made. It's not a free trade agreement, and you have to understand there are 4 pillars in which actually this was launched in 2022 G7 summit. Okay, but you need to understand 4 pillars are part of it, and India recently joined this clean pillar, clean energy pillar. You can see here 4 pillars I have shown: trade, resilience, and you also have clean energy, decarbonized in infrastructure, right? So we said we are not going to join trade. Okay, India said we are not going to join trade because all the things that India had with respect to trade policies and all, those are not complying with IPF trade policies. So we said it is not going to benefit India. That is the reason, except these pillar, we are a part of all the other 3 pillars. That's the main thing you need to understand. That means we didn't completely accept IPF framework. Okay, and it's not a free trade agreement. This is what mainly you have to understand. Okay, that may be a trap. And you know, these are all the member countries. Okay, so then I told you already. So India has opted out of trade pillar and actively it is participating in the IPF. So in clean energy generally helps in reducing the greenhouse gas emissions and to make it more clean. Then next topic we have is Assam Accord, right? So this is also in the news in the recent times. So what is Assam Accord is, it was signed in 1985 between then Rajiv Gandhi, who is the Prime Minister at that point of time, central government, in All India Assam Students Union. Okay, so what is the main confrontation here is, you know, like after Bangladesh liberation, large scale migration happened from Bangladesh into Assam. So to stop Bangladesh illegal migration, so this Assam Accord was signed. Like almost 6 years protests happened, and they wanted to stop this illegal migration from Bangladesh, and they wanted to identify who are illegal migrants, and they want only the fruits of development given to the Assamese. They don't want that to be given to the illegal migrants from Bangladesh. So because of that, there are some protests, and then central government has compelled to sign this Assam Accord, and Section 6 was also in use. So recently, why? Because Chief Minister of Assam said we are accepting the recommendations of one committee that was formed on this issue. That is Justice Biplab Sharma Committee, one of the High Court judge. Okay, so and what is the main accord? It is trying to end 6-year-long protests or hesitation to identify the entry of illegal migrants from Bangladesh. So 6 is saying the constitutional, legislative and administrative safeguards will be given to protect, preserve and promote cultural, social and linguistic identity and heritage of Assamese. That means in all these aspects will be safeguarding Assamese. So there won't be any discrimination that these people will be facing with the Bangladeshi illegal migrants. So this is also the committee that was constituted in 2019 by MHA. So whether these people will be eligible or not, that's the question. And recommendations is Assamese will be given reservations to get all the benefits. Then last topic we have is Jordan, right? So Jordan is an area, and you have to remember not only in terms of Jordan, but entire West Asia is a favorite area of UPSC. Every year minimum 1 question comes from West Asian countries. Okay, so all the time you make it as a habit of watching this West Asian region keenly on the map. So what are all the countries that are opening to the Mediterranean Sea, which are all landlocked countries, which are having border with Red Sea, which are having border with Israel, Palestine. So these things have to be clearly observed. So you can see Lebanon and Israel conflict is also happening, right? Hamas is done. Now we have Hezbollah. Hezbollah is the group that is operating from Lebanon. So you need to remember. And you have Jordan here. So Jordan doesn't have any boundary with Mediterranean Sea. That can be asked as a question, right? So this is one you have to understand. So it became the very first country to get that certification from WHO in eliminating leprosy. Leprosy, you know, right? So leprosy is caused by bacterium, right? Microbacterium leprae, something. So significance is, you know, like this became the very first country. So such things can be indirectly also asked, okay? So you need to know, this question was also asked. once in UPSC. What is Levant region? Eastern Mediterranean coast is called Levant region. Okay, so it's very important. Once already they have asked. So Asia, Africa, and Europe, Eastern Mediterranean region, which joins this region, we call it as Levant. And you know borders of this Jordan or this, and you also have Gulf of Aqaba. So these things you need to observe on the map, right? So this is all with respect to today's discussion. Okay. So thank you for your patience.